This whole idea of like, you complete me, or I need somebody to complete me, is a fucked up like byproduct of Disney and all these other romanticized stories that society gives us. If anybody's thinking in terms of that framework, you better like back up and reevaluate and like you complete yourself, you know, and then from that point, like you can have a healthy relationship with another complete person. And that's we could do another whole podcast on that, but I want to just like say that piece and dive back to an intimacy practice. Another thing we do is every new moon. So we're both like really earthy people. You could say we're both spiritual people, whatever, like follow the cycles of the seasons and the moon and all this stuff. And every new moon we get together and we have a session, you could call it a ceremony or whatever, where we sit together and we talk about our relationship and we kind of reflect on the past month and what went really well and what was challenging. And, you know, how can we show up better to support each other in relationship? And what are some fun things that we want to do over the next moon cycle? You know, maybe that's a trip to the beach. Maybe that's, I don't know, going out to eat, a really fancy thing. Maybe that's going camping. Maybe that's a threesome, maybe like whatever, you know, but like coming up with some collaborative goals as a couple to accomplish together as a team is a really fun way to build intimacy too, you know? So you're kind of on the same page. And then from there, like there's all kinds of other stuff you can do, like send the sexy texts and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you know?
Yeah.
But there's one other thing that I think is super important to say around this. It's a serious one. And I've seen it like ruin relationships and ruin polarity. And it's this thing where after you've been in relationship for a while, it's really, really easy to fall into patterns of taking your partner for granted. And I'm not just talking about like, oh yeah, she's here or he's here and I have them, but like specifically how you show up with your partner in the like everyday moments of life. Like, do you start like just saying stupid shit around each other? Like, do you start like farting around each other? Like, not that farting is bad, but like, what are the things that you do that maybe on a subtle level might actually be killing your attraction? And you're doing those things out of perceived comfort in the moment, like perceived comfort and intimacy and closeness, but that's actually killing sexual charge, you know? And this is like a huge thing that I want to like tease apart a little bit more. Somebody who's a famous research speaker person out there said something to the effect of, intimacy is the killer of desire. And I think that's like, it's a really interesting one, you know, because obviously in long-term romantic relationship, we do want some level of intimacy, but generally people also want sustained sexual passion and sustained fire. And so it's this balancing act of having intimacy, but also not being so quote unquote intimate that we lose the charge and we lose the attraction for each other. And that's a delicate balance, you know?
That is, and I can find like just like speaking of like to myself as a guy, as like it is super desirable to be, as I was mentioned beforehand, like it's really comfortable to ejaculate like every day. Yeah. It's very comfortable to eat a cake. It's also very comfortable to be extremely like intimate and super relaxed with your partner. So that I can definitely see how that comes, because if you start doing it, then she's going to do it, and then you're going to be like, well, I'm less attracted to you now. What?
Yeah. Yeah. And then the question becomes like, what sort of relationship do you want to create? What relationship culture do you want to create? How do you want to lead in this scenario? You know? And there's an example that I like to give to like drive this home. Two friends of mine, I was on a camping trip with a couple of years ago, and both individually beforehand, they were talking, this is a couple, they were both telling me like, I really love this person, but our sex life, it's just not so great. Like we haven't had sex in a while. And I'm like, okay, well, this will be cool to go camping with y'all and a bunch of other people and see like what the deal is. And over the course of this camping trip, a couple of times when I was around them, I was like, good Lord, what's wrong? Like they would say things to each other like, hey, little snookums, you gonna make me some food? You know, or like, what up, little baby, baby. Like seriously, like all this baby talk stuff. And then I pulled them aside at one point. I was like,
enough.
Do you think that talking to each other this way might have something to do with the reason you haven't had sex in a month? Like I challenge you to try not speaking like this at all for a month and just see what happens to your relationship. Don't do anything else. Just completely remove this element of how you communicate with each other and see what happens. And sure enough, like sex came back. But it's amazing, like, because for them, they both came from this pattern. Apparently that sort of talk was really comforting to both of them as children, you know? So in the context of their intimate relationship, they just started doing it because it was comfortable and easy. And there was this fun element to it, but it totally like sabotaged their entire sexual relationship. And it's like little pieces like that are super important to be aware of, you know?
Oh, imagine what else is there. Just must be so much that you come across. And there was actually a quote today, which I just want to get up real quickly, that I was just reading the Daily Stoic, and it was like, Seneca's quote was, "Leisure without study is death, a tomb for the living person." And what he means is, like, if you're going on holiday and you're going on holiday purely to relax, that's like death. You should always be learning and always be growing. Essentially saying, like, screw comfort, always be like doing something to better yourself. And in speaking the terms of like relationship and like sex, that is like a perfect quote. Just for that, I was like, crazy.
Yeah. And discerning between comfort and generative relaxation, I think, because like vacation is important and getting a massage is important, you know, but getting a massage is totally fucking different than sitting on your ass for 4 hours and watching Netflix while you eat a bag of shit food, you know?
It's exactly what he meant. Yeah, like exactly. So